waters that would carry them to a better life. At least that's what they hoped. Some charities believe the reality is far different, with children at risk of being manipulated by gangs once they get here, and even trafficked into child prostitution.
Across these pebbles walk lonely children who've risked everything to get this far. Some have fled war and persecution. But what are their next steps? To a temporary hotel, with a risk that this brief stepping stone could lead to a new, unknown peril.
Clearly, the issue of migrants raises strong emotions. Polls suggest there is a high degree of concern about the numbers coming here, but the duty of care to children who happen to be migrants will worry many. Data obtained by the BBC through a Freedom of Information request shows that from those young people placed in hotels, 116 children are missing. That's more than 25 times the number missing in July last year, which was 4. 1,606 children who arrived alone in England between July 2021 and June 2022 were placed in hotel accommodation directly by the Home Office.
Well, I'm totally shocked by the numbers that are still effectively unaccounted for. 116 children are missing and not been found. So the consequences of that are huge. I mean, if we don't know where they are, they could be dead, they could be working away in a cannabis farm, in a factory, domestic servitude, they could be being criminally exploited or sexually exploited behind closed doors, and nobody knows what's happening to them.
Yeah, I was in the lorry and then I came here.
Rishan fled from Sudan several years ago. She was just 17 when she arrived here on the back of a lorry. She's now living here legally and is convinced some of the children will have been trafficked.
The journey I came, like the smugglers that you have to pay them. I had to stay in Libya for so long just because I didn't have the money. So for them, say to them, okay, I will send you to this country, then you have to pay me back. So the trafficker, they always like use their words like to manipulate young people and make them to do things that they don't know what's happening. So for the young people to come to here and to leave, and just because of they're being trafficked, they have to pay, they have to do constantly doing this thing, and that's not, for me, that's nothing new.
Some 65 charities have said the problem lies with the children being placed in hotels by the Home Office, arguing they're not safe. This started happening last summer when some councils said they'd run out of suitable accommodation. The Home Affairs Select Committee has criticised the arrangement, while Ofsted has called it unacceptable. But one member of the committee says it's a more complex picture.
Let's put it into context. Most of these children are going to be 15, 16, 17-year-olds, not toddlers, but they are still children. In many cases, they will have gone to family and friends of their own volition that they've got over here and already know about. But we don't know that. But there are others who are being trafficked, who are in the hands of people who would try to get them into the sex business or modern-day slavery or whatever, and they are the ones who we must be most worried about.
Some of those children are as young as 10 and 11. So we know that there's a broad range of children and young people. And I don't think it's acceptable either to say that we should be less worried about 16 and 17-year-olds, actually, because they're often at the very difficult developmental stage. But these are also children and young people who are hugely traumatised. They've been abused. And therefore, we need to look at them all as children. That's what our law says.
Newsnight observed one hotel where children are staying. Some looked like they weren't even teenagers yet. There were security guards at the front, and when the children left the hotel, they were accompanied by an adult. The government insists safeguarding measures are in place to protect them, but campaigners argue their needs aren't being met.
And they need to feel that they have a home and that there are people there to look after them, whether that's foster care or a children's home. They really need more care and support to help them get over the trauma, to make them feel settled so that they don't go missing.
The Home Office said an unprecedented rise in dangerous channel crossings was putting extreme pressure on the asylum system and meant we have had no alternative but to temporarily use hotels to give children a roof over their heads whilst long-term accommodation is found.
The alternative is to put them in secure accommodation and treat them like prisoners, which we don't want to do, and that would not be appropriate at all. So it's a sheer weight of numbers issue, which is why we have these sorts of problems. But that's no excuse for not properly having the details and keeping the tabs on the whereabouts of as many of those people as possible, and particularly unaccompanied children.
The local government association says it's working tirelessly to find suitable placements and calls on ministers to stop using hotels. Councils are also trying to find places for Afghan and Ukrainian refugees, some of whom have been in hotels for more than a year, conveying the demands they're currently facing. The Home Office says on average unaccompanied children are moved to care within 15 days of arriving in a hotel, but it acknowledges more needs to be done. That is why we are working closely with local authorities, it says, to increase the number of placements available and offer councils £6,000 for every child they can provide accommodation for.
I feel like they've been neglected in a way of where is the safety? Where is the safety issue that we know about? Like, where is the child protection?
When a child goes missing, you imagine the worst. And when they've disappeared in unfamiliar surroundings, they could be even more vulnerable.